So love is something that we talk about a lot. But what about practice? Do we actually practice true love? Or do we even understand true love? The name of our congregation is Break Free Agape Fellowship. And everybody knows what agape means, right?
Love.
And it's love, but it's not just love, because again, when you say that you love somebody, what are you really saying? And that's what we're going to talk about today, is what true love is really all about. I think one good example that Jesus talked about is the scripture verse. He said, "Greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends." Has anybody ever laid down their life for you? I mean, actually, they might have saved your life, but how about someone that actually, maybe you see or hear about the person that she sees someone standing out in the street and a car's coming, and they run and push that person out of the harm's way and is killed. What about all our veterans that go to war and fight the battle? What are they doing? They're sacrificing their lives for our country, so that we can have the right to do the things that we have freedom to do as protected by our Constitution. And some of them not only go overseas and fight the wars, but they don't come back because they paid that ultimate price. They laid down their lives for their country. What a good example of love. I'm going to ask this, true or false, okay? You like those true or false questions? Couples who regularly practice any combination of serious religious behaviors and attitudes enjoy significantly lower divorce rates.
True. True.
I hear somebody said false, some say, most of you said true. I'll let you change your answer if you want to try it.
True.
Okay. Well, many people who seriously practice a traditional religious faith, be it Christian or other, have a divorce rate markedly lower than the general population. The factor making the most difference is religious commitment and practice. The intuitive is true. Couples who regularly practice any combination of serious religious behaviors and attitudes, attend church every week, and read their Bibles and spiritual materials regularly, pray privately together, generally take their faith seriously, living not as perfect disciples, but serious disciples, enjoying significantly lower divorce rates than mere church members, the general public and unbelievers. Professor Bradley Wright, a sociologist at the University of Connecticut, explains from his analysis of people who identify as Christians but rarely attend church that 60% of these have been divorced. Now that's a pretty high rate for people who so-call themselves Christians to get divorced. But I think that just because a person is a Christian or says they are a Christian doesn't really tell you that they practice true Christianity. And if you do not practice true Christianity, then you will not understand true love. I love the love chapter, right? How many of you have known what the love chapter is all about before? I mean, or is this the first time you knew that 1 Corinthians 13 was the love chapter? I know you don't want to raise your hand because you don't want to embarrass yourself, so I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand. The love chapter. Well, maybe I'll ask this question. How many of you have ever memorized the whole chapter 13, 1 Corinthians 13? I challenge you, do that. Of course, when you go into a Christian school, from kindergarten to 8th grade, this is one of the scripture verses that they kind of, not force, I wouldn't say force, but they get you to memorize. And of course, I memorized in King James. Then when I went to Bible college, it was New American Standard. And then came the New International Version and whatever version else that you might have. But it doesn't matter. And you don't have to have it word for word, just so long you got the main concept. But the couple verses, goes like this. If I speak in the tongues of men or of angels, but do not have love, I am only a resounding gong and clanging cymbal. In other words, I'm just making a lot of noise. If I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have the faith where I can move mountains, but do not have love, I am
Nothing.
Nothing.
nothing. If I am so generous and I give all my possessions to the poor, and I give my body over to the hardship or to the flames, that I may boast. Look at me, look what I'm doing. But have not love, what do I gain?
Nothing.
Nothing. Love is patient. How many of you would say that you're patient? Is patient saying I'm patient sort of like I'm humble? Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It is not. It does not dishonor others. In some versions, it says it does not. It's not rude. You ever been rude before? Why is it that we tend to be rude to the people that are closest to us? Because maybe you're sort of, so to speak, laying your hair down. You don't have your guard up. But when you go out into the public, you want to look good, so you are nice to other people. You're kind to other people, but the people that matter the most to you, you treat like dirt. Now get this one. It's not self-seeking, only looking out for number one. It is not easily angered. Wow. And it keeps no records of wrongs. Now I know we tend to, when someone has wronged us, I'll never forget what he did. I'll forgive him, but I'll never forget. How many of you ever said that before, huh? Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, and always perseveres. Let's take that word for a moment, persevere. What does that mean, persevere?
Keep going.
Keep going no matter what. Well, I've tried to forgive her, but remember what Peter said? Lord, how many times should I forgive? What did Jesus say? 7 times, not just 7 times, but 7 times 7. So do the math.
49.
490, what?
49.
49? I thought it was 490 or 4,090 or whatever it is. Even if even we say 4,090, right? What does that mean? That means there's going to be a time when I can stop forgiving them?
No.
No,
What did Jesus mean by that?
forever.
Means you don't stop forgiving, right?
Right.
And I like, again, the Lord's Prayer. How many of you have ever said the Lord's Prayer out loud before? So let me tell you this. If you have not forgiven someone and you have prayed the Lord's Prayer, you know what you're praying? You say, Lord, forgive me the same way I forgive other people. Now, if you have a grudge and you haven't forgiven them, then you're just saying, God, don't forgive me because I'm not willing to forgive that person. Because I've heard a lot of Christians said, there's one person that I will never forget for what they did to me. I was talking to somebody recently, and I said, well, that person was complaining how his spouse always does the same thing over and over again, and it really bothers him. And I said, this is the way you need to look at it. Have you done anything wrong to God? Yeah. We can all say that, right? We've all done something wrong. Well, what if God says, I will not forgive you this time? What would happen?
Trouble.
We'd be in trouble. Where would we go? Where would we spend our eternity if God says, I will not forgive you this time? You don't want to talk about that place. Love never fails, but where there are prophecies, they will cease. Where there are tongues, they will be stilled. And where there is knowledge, it will pass away. For we know in part, and we prophesy in part. But when completeness comes, what is in part disappears. When I was a child, I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. And when I became a man, of course, women, if you read this and you try to memorize it, you put woman in there, okay? I put away childish things behind me, for now we see only in a reflection, as in a mirror. Then we shall see face to face. Now I know in part. Then I shall know fully, even as I am fully known. And now these three remain: faith, hope, and love. Agape, love. These three. But the greatest of these is love. You see how important love is? How many of you ever grew up without your parents telling you, I love you? Ouch. How about your siblings? Your siblings ever tell you, I love you? Or maybe you have a bad relation with your siblings. Let me ask you this. How many times have you said, I love you to your siblings? What we have to do as Christians is we have to initiate love. Why? Because God initiated love to us from the very beginning, and He never has stopped loving us. And He desires for us to understand His love and be able to love other people the same way that He loves. It's that unconditional agape love that I'm talking about. Relationships. How many of you have gotten into a relationship and, you know, they say, what are some of the things they say when they meet somebody? Boy meets girl, girl meets boy. I have
Fallen in love.
fallen in love. Right? And when somebody goes and looks at them, there's like this, they're in a daze, you know, and they're like Google eyes, right? Oh, I love that guy or girl. But what are they really saying? Are they really saying they love that person? Or are they saying, wow, he's handsome, or she's hot? What are they saying? I know when I do counseling, for marriage counseling, I say, if love is based on what can I get out of this relationship, is that really love? And you know, the reason why a lot of people get into a marriage relationship is because the other person, they see something in the other person can provide for me. You understand what I'm saying? And what I tell people is, do not get married because of what that person can provide for me. They cannot provide happiness. Maybe they're rich, but they cannot provide the riches. Because what happens if, say, the rich person that you desire to have a relationship with you goes bankrupt? What happens to your relationship? Or, I marry that good-looking person because, wow, she just pleases my eyes. Then the person gets into a car accident and just gets their face all mangled up. Is love still there? Or what about if the person in the accident is permanently disabled? And I had a friend who was in Bible college, and they got in a severe accident, both of them. And he became a vegetable, was unconscious for several days. But then he got miraculously got healed, but he never was sane mentally. And later on, she filed for divorce. We never know what we're going to do, how we're going to act. But if we do not have or understand true love, then love is only temporary. Love is basically a selfish love, and it's not agape love. So the four kinds of loves, and you've probably heard this before, right? In the Greek, you see, when in our English language, when we say I love you, what am I really saying?
Eros.
Well, you might not understand what that person is, because what you hear might be something different, right? I remember one time when I was a junior counselor in camp, and there's this young blonde girl that came to me, and I says, I love you. And she had this different understanding. She didn't understand what I was saying. I was saying, I godly love you. And she was thinking that I was physically attractive. Well, she was good looking, but she thought that I wanted to have a boyfriend-girlfriend relationship with her.